Hello. So this video is going to be responding to the Mozart video you sent me. Thanks very much. I really enjoyed it. Again, it's come on leaps and bounds, and in a weird way, I think maybe sort of having had that break because of the hurt finger has sort of, I don't know. I'm loath to say it's helped, but I sometimes wonder if sort of taking a break from something that you've been working really hard on isn't a good thing sometimes, because it just makes you sort of approach it again in a much more kind of relaxed way. And that's the good thing. It's your interpretation of it sounded, very relaxed, very kind of calm and classical. It was really lovely. So I've got a few sort of points of suggestion and feedback for the Mozart. Frustratingly, my edition doesn't have bar numbers, so I've gone through and I've written in, or I think I've written in, the bar number at the start of every line, and I've checked it a couple of times, but apologies if I've made a counting error, and if so, I may be a sort of bar or so out when I quote bar numbers, but it should be fairly obvious from context where I'm looking. So first thing is just a sort of general kind of thing that applies to sort of lots of areas of the piece. The musicality and the shaping is really lovely, especially how you're sort of tapering the ends of the phrases and kind of getting, softer towards those cadences. That's sounding really lovely. For example, at the end of that first section. However, I think you could afford a little bit more of a build-up to them. So to sort of put it bluntly, I think your diminuendos are superb, but I think some of your crescendos could be a little bit bolder. I don't think there's any risk you're going to overdo it, because you're playing it really kind of gently and classically and in a Mozart-y way anyway. But I think you could afford just a little bit more of a kind of swell on some of the builds up, because that makes the diminuendos more powerful if they've sort of been more built up to. For example, that first one, which is on, I think, bar 11 by my reckoning, we've got some build up and then the die down at the cadence. Don't be afraid to sort of, build up a little bit more before you die down. That's just a small point. That being said, there are, as you're doing, there are points in the piece where it wants to be more kind of black and white. So in my edition, around bar 60 or thereabouts, where we go to this minor section, that bit there, you've got more sort of striking kind of, light on, light off, light on, light off dynamics with the fortes and the pianos and the fortes and the pianos, and that came across well. But yeah, don't be afraid to really kind of be quite bold on those chords there, as long as you want to sort of make sure that melody note on top is the sort of the most, what's the word I'm looking for, the most kind of assertive, the one that stands out. So I would sort of lean in with the little finger quite a bit there to make that A really kind of sing out. Whatever the notes are. And then similarly here with this looks like a diminished chord. You kind of sort of all building up to that beat. Nice and quiet. And so on and so on. Was there anything else I wanted to say about dynamics? No, I think that's it really. So a couple of little techie bits. As I said, the overall flow of it is tons better. I would just do a little bit of practice, not playing the whole thing at all, just sort of extracting these sections. Firstly, on the really fast ornamental sections, let me find an example of where I mean. Where we've got these sort of demi-semi-quaver turns and things like that. I would just do a little bit more practice on those on their own, because most of them are sounding really good, but some of them are still kind of slowing it down just a fraction. And the other section that I would, it's coming along really well, but it's still not quite where you want it, are those sections where it's climbing up in seconds. I think that starts at around bar 30. Sorry, wrong key. That bit there. Just want to get those climby bits. really, really, really even, and I think the shaping in there, the crescendos are really important. So I would start minor marked at P at the beginning, climbing to F. I would sort of start them as a PP, start them really quiet. Just because that way, the quieter you start, the less effort you have to invest to give the crescendo. Whereas if you start them, even moderately quietly, you've got to use quite a bit more kind of pressure and weight then to get them louder. So I would just start them kind of feather-light and then just have them sort of build up. The fingering, of course, is really, really useful there, and my edition's got good fingering in. I'm certain yours has, because yours is the light blue ABRSM book, isn't it? They're really good for fingering and stuff. Just so that you can kind of climb the keys really, really, really nicely. Really good ways to practice fiddly kind of finger worky passages like that. Couple of suggestions: rhythms, so long, short, long, short, long, short, followed by short, long, short, long, short, long. Works really, 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 really well. Using accents as well, so you could do it by accenting the first and then each one sort of two thereafter. Those are good ways of sort of stressing different parts of it. So and just like with the rhythms, if you sort of do it one way then the other, so sort of accent the odd numbered notes and the even numbered notes, it's almost as if you're stretching it in both directions. A bit like, this is a really cheesy, a bit like we're sort of stretching bread dough in both directions just to make it more kind of elastic and malleable, as a whole. I suppose you could say you're sort of doing that. Plus it just makes practicing that a little bit more engaging and interesting, because to just sort of do them robotically time and time and time again would both be really, really boring, and also potentially quite harmful, because you and any human being would just switch off. There's nothing engaging about that, so you wouldn't really be kind of paying any heed to the sound that you're making. There are a couple of bits that I've marked out where you were cutting long notes a bit short. One of them I've got is in bar 44, so it's on one of these cadences. That's it, before we go back to... Oh, and it's those twiddly bits I was referring to earlier, where we've got the demi-semiquavers. Remember that the actual demi-semiquavers there, the fast notes, they're nowhere near as important as the principal notes. So taking that bar for an example, the absolute priority is to get to the A on the beat. So without the ornament, in fact without the ornament it's identical to the first bar, isn't it? My fingering was rather bad there. That's it. 3, and then so 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 3. It's always better with really fast ornaments like that if you don't use the same finger to play a repeat note. So we've got the middle note of that's repeated, but if you use a different note, different finger on the repeat, that's it. Just kind of helps. I've been out of practice with this myself. It just kind of helps you get them much more sort of clean. And the lighter they are, the better as well. It would be far better, I think, in performance to risk the ornament being a tad smudged, rather than to have the ornament really, really crystal clear, but to sort of slow the beat down, or take the emphasis away from the principal notes. Kind of imagine the principal notes as sort of divas, and they'll have a sort of big kind of sort of leading lady strop if the ornaments sort of steal their limelight. The main point where I wanted to sort of mention about counting and not slowing down is by my reckoning, bar 151. It's such a long piece, and it's when we start that section. Sorry, it is. That very contrapuntal kind of layered section there. So the bar I'm referring to is the one that just has those minims in. And on your recording, you played that bar really, really fast. You could count that bar really carefully. So that will last as long as the entire. Sorry. It's as long as that. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. And so on and so on. And the other thing I would sort of work on there are two things you're trying to achieve in that whole section. First of all, it's just a big, exciting build-up. It's sort of nothing more than that in terms of its job. So the crescendo is really, really important. Again, when you've got a crescendo as long as this one, if it says start P, start PP, start really quiet so that you've got plenty of room to climb. And what we want to draw attention to here is that repeating da 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 da, where you've got the sort of tied thing going to a quaver, and then another pair of quavers that are coupleted together, followed by another minim, and then the cycle just repeats. Da 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 da. So you want to sort of try and bring that out wherever it occurs there. Da 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 da. And so on and so on and so on. It's more like Bach, that bit, than Mozart. And just a couple more things. These are just kind of like tweaks. These are more like bits of housekeeping rather than anything. I'm cursing myself because I didn't write the bar number, but there's. Oh, I found it. So where we go from, and this is always tricky. Where you go from sort of a regular beat of quavers, semi-quavers, whatever, to triplets is always really, really hard to kind of judge in terms of the pulse. I think it's sort of about a dozen, maybe 14 bars from the end of the piece, where we have something like this. No, wrong chord. And we have this sort of climbing kind of section in triplets. Anywhere, and I think I would say this goes for any piece, anywhere where you have triplets going to sort of normal simple time rhythm, or vice versa, set the metronome. And in this instance, I would just set it to the 4 beats of the bar, just so that you kind of hear the first beat for both the regular rhythm and for the triplets. Going from, say, sets of 4 semi-quavers to sets of 3 tripleted quavers is really, really hard at the best of times. Da 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 da. Always causes problems. You're not alone by any stretch of the imagination. And where was this one? Oh, page 5. Let me find. Okay, so one other kind of part to be a little bit careful. Page 5 in my score, so this is around, sort of about bar 129 thereabouts. There are a few bars where we've got a single note in the left hand or chord, followed by just a run of semiquavers in the right hand. A good example is bar 149, where we've got. I shouldn't have held that D at the bottom. And then that B flat major scale. You want to just sort of make sure that you're kind of keeping the beat there really, really strongly. I think there's a bit of a hesitation between the left-hand note and the right-hand note, but always look at what type of rest you've got. Because using that bar as an example, the rest in the right hand is effectively the missing semiquaver. So we've got a set of 3 semiquavers, then a set of 4, set of 4, set of 4. So the rest at the beginning is kind of the ghost of what would make that first set a complete set of 4. So you want to sort of almost treat the left hand one as filling in that gap. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. A similar thing happens in bar 129 where we've got this chord. Was that right? No, that wasn't right. There we are. So da 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 da, and there we've got those evil triplets back in again, just to cause mischief. And so on and so on and so on. That's really, though, I mean, I've waffled a lot here, but those were mostly bits of sort of housekeeping rather than any kind of systemic, melodramas or anything like that. So really well done. I thoroughly enjoyed listening to that. I really do mean that. I will get some feedback done for the Brahms as well in due course. I'll get that sent over to you. And yes, I shall look forward to hearing some more recordings and seeing you in a couple of weeks' time. Have a pleasant weekend. Bye for now.